Is it possible to transform from an underdog to a master of all that I survey? In my quest to 100% complete Forager, I'll embark on an epic journey. It's not just about gathering resources, it's a battle through other dimensions, facing off against colossal bosses and unraveling the world's hidden secrets. I'll even tackle Groudon's ambitious vision of a land devoid of water. Join me as I strive to conquer everything Forager has to offer. Right off the bat, I spawn on a small island with nothing but a pickaxe to my name. The very first thing I do is pick up this fairy, who tells me I need to build a furnace. So I quickly gather all of the nearby resources, even cutting down a tree with a pickaxe, which I thought was pretty impressive, but whatever. After gathering enough resources, I slap down my furnace, excited to see all of the fun materials I can now craft, which turned out just to be coal for now. Turns out you need to gather wood to make coal, and then that coal can be used to craft things like gold or iron ingots. So begins our resource cycle. I eventually go ahead and craft a fish trap, which will apparently automatically fish for me, which sounds pretty helpful. After soloing a rock, I eventually make it to level 2, at which point I'm allowed to choose a new skill. I go for magic, which grants me 25% more XP, thinking picking this up early would be the smartest choice. With the resources I've crafted from the furnace, I'm also able to build a forge. The forge allows me to upgrade my tools, such as the pickaxe, as well as craft coins which I could use to purchase the surrounding lands, giving me more room to explore. Unfortunately, I don't have nearly enough resources, so I won't be getting any upgrades quite so fast. Now, here's where I make a crucial mistake. I end up eating pretty much my entire berry supply to fill my hunger. What I didn't realize was that berries were needed to craft more fish nets, which will come back to bite me later on. But for now, it's another level, another skill, this time unlocking economy. This instantly gives me 40 coins, as well as increasing the amount of coins that the forge makes. With this generous increase in gold, I purchased the nearby land, revealing various statues and a giant slime monster, which I quickly dispatch. After looking at the statues for a minute, I quickly realized the obvious pattern, slamming down a chest in the center of the island. While waiting for the key to the chest to finish crafting, I level up once more, this time unlocking the skill of trade, giving me markets. Unfortunately for me, markets require a lot of resources, including leather, which I've never even seen before and I have no clue how to get. So, looks like it'll be a while before I can make that. Additionally, I craft the sewing station, which is where I'll be upgrading the majority of my accessories, such as my backpack and wallet. After crafting the key and unlocking the chest, I get a brand new shield, which gives me a 25% chance to dodge attacks. I don't think that's how shields work, but I won't complain. I continue to level up, this time unlocking industry, granting me access to steel, glass, and I now gain EXP when building structures. The real gem here is the glass, which is needed to craft bottles, which are needed to catch the fireflies, which are needed to upgrade my pickaxe. Of course, in order to craft glass, I also need to gather sand. Now, don't tell past me, but if I just craft the shovel, gathering sand is actually pretty easy. Unfortunately, I thought the only way to gather sand was via fish traps, which gather it very, very slowly. And of course, I ate all of the berries I had. Needless to say, it's going to be a while before I ever see that upgrade. Another level, another skill, this time unlocking carpentry. This ends up being pretty much worthless though, as it's purely for creating cosmetic decorations, so I never actually use the carpentry station. Now, I'm at a point where I've mined every resource on my little island, and I'm fresh out of things to do. So, I just wait for new resources to come up, and hope that the next time I level up, it'll give me a way to progress more easily. I eventually gather enough berries to lay down 2 more fish traps, tripling my sand income, which is still incredibly slow. Level up, I unlock sewing, granting me leather, a much needed resource. I eventually save enough gold to buy some new land, hoping for something exciting, but just finding a tiny island with a chest on it. I also spot my first animal, a chicken, which I quickly strike down without mercy. The next skill I unlock is gathering, which grants me 4 more item slots and more EXP when I gather plants. This is especially helpful since I was just starting to run out of inventory slots. Finally, I unlock the chest, receiving nerdy glasses, increasing my EXP gain by an additional 20%. Definitely helpful. After slapping down even more fish traps, I level up once more, unlocking foraging, which now allows for more things to grow on my little islands. I finally have enough coins crafted to unlock some new land, this time going for the land above. This is where I meet the druid, who wants me to gather 2 torch bugs for him. I quickly comply, and am granted the scrolls as a reward. Along with the scrolls comes a second request for tree saplings, which I have no clue how to get right now, but I'll figure it out. After another level, I unlock fishing, which makes my fish traps catch things 50% faster, certainly a welcome upgrade. Finally, I decide to use the scrolls I got and suddenly find myself surrounded by a forest. It'll be a while before I can clear all of this out. With another level, I unlock combat, which unlocks swords and increases my damage by 1, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is actually incredibly helpful and allows me to cut down these trees significantly faster. Additionally, I unlock my very first upgrade, a small backpack, granting me 4 more item slots. A much needed upgrade since I was once again about to run out of room. I go on to unlock mining, making it so rocks drop an additional 40% more materials when mined. I journey into the druid's home and put a nice sapling on my head to show that I'm very environmentally conscious and will definitely not go on to exploit all of the resources that I find. Anyway, I found a new creature. Not really sure what it was, but it did drop leather when I killed it, so I will be hunting all of those every time I see them. I also go ahead and create some more furnaces to keep up with the rising demand of materials. I decide to go with textiles for my next upgrade, gaining access to boots, which grant additional speed and dodge chance, and gloves, which grant higher attack speed. With enough money saved, I purchased some more land, revealing some kind of pillar. This pillar grants me additional EXP when gathering vegetation, but is only active for a limited amount of time. I also spot my first cow in the game, which, when brutally slaughtered, granted me a ton of leather. Sorry cow, if you didn't want to be killed, you shouldn't have been made out of leather, kind of your own fault. I also encountered my first skeleton, which I have to say, it wasn't exactly a formidable foe. I additionally unlock hunting, which gives me a new tool, the bow, and makes it so monsters will drop coins from now on when killed. I also finally decided to craft the shovel, which, once I actually decide to use it, will drastically increase my sand income. I even managed to get enough materials for the market, which I quickly place and begin selling off some of my worthless items. The items being sold were certainly interesting, including some kind of potion and uranium. I decided to only buy some of the tree saplings for the druid and be on my way, since I couldn't afford to buy stuff when I had no clue what it even did. I managed to also unlock vaults, which allowed me to store items separately from my inventory, which will help with managing all of the new materials and items I'm encountering. After finally saving enough money, I purchased some more land, this time unlocking a large building, which turned out to be some kind of museum. Here, I'll be able to create a collection of various items in the game, and upon completing a collection, I'll be given some kind of reward. Something I'll have to work on as I progress through the game. I finally decided to start digging, and quickly find more sand in 5 seconds than I found in 10 minutes of having my fish traps run. Additionally, I go ahead and upgrade my boots, granting me 10% increased movement speed and a 5% chance to dodge attacks. Along with this upgrade to my boots, I unlock farming, which gives me windmills and sprinklers, which we'll get to later on. More importantly though, I finally gathered all of the resources needed to finally upgrade my pickaxe, which now does more damage, and every time I knock something down with it, they have a chance to drop slime. With this upgrade, this playthrough can finally get underway. I quickly purchased some more of the neighboring land, this time revealing a lake with a rainbow on it, as well as some colorful mushrooms. The pattern is pretty obvious, so I hit the mushrooms in order of the color in the rainbow, unlocking a chest in the middle, granting me a fish net. This makes it so fish traps automatically collect themselves, so I no longer have to constantly go back and see if anything is caught, an upgrade I am extremely thankful for. I also managed to unlock geology, which makes all rocks drop coal, so hopefully I can stop wasting my wood making this stuff. Having access to the market has also drastically increased my income, allowing me to purchase more land, this time unlocking some kind of fountain surrounded by fairies. I'm even able to unlock my new slime gloves, increasing my attack speed by an additional 10%. Later that day, I made my way back to the fountain, encountering a dangerous skeleton and some kind of fairy queen. She promised that for a very small donation, she'll give me the power of the fairies. This small donation equates to 1,000 coins, more than I've ever had up to this point, so it looks like I have a new goal to shoot for. I also go ahead and unlock alchemy, allowing me to craft potions. Shocker, I don't have enough materials to make anything, but it's nice to have. I go ahead and use my second scroll, since cutting down trees shouldn't take nearly enough time as it did before all of my upgrades. My next big project was the windmill, which turned out to be the way you create tree saplings. After quickly making those, I turned in the 30 saplings to the druid, who quickly slammed a chest down, destroying my windmill and blocking my path back to the main island. Thanks. He additionally makes yet another request, this time requesting some kind of dinosaur egg. Another item I have no clue how to get, but I suppose it'll come naturally at some point. I go ahead and build my way around the chest and place my windmill somewhere far away from the druid. Here, I start crafting cotton seeds, since I've been running low on cotton for a while and wouldn't mind having a surplus. I placed the sprinklers, which would apparently increase the speed with which the plants would grow. Weirdly, there's no animation for the sprinkler, so through trial and error, I figured out it's only the holes directly next to the sprinkler that would get the bonus growth speed. I additionally unlocked a new pet, which is a little giraffe that would follow me around and occasionally pick up some items. Honestly though, he's kind of more trouble than he's worth and typically just ends up getting in my way, but he's kind of cute, I guess. I finally get around to unlocking the druid's chest, revealing a top hat, which looks a lot more like a ninja cloak or something, but whatever. Making it so coins are worth 50% more. Maybe that small donation goal won't be as hard to meet as I first thought. My cotton plants have finally grown, so I quickly turn them back into seeds and expand my farm some more. I continued the cycle of increasing my farm size for a while, until I have a fair-sized plot of farmland and I'm making tons of cotton. Additionally, I unlocked prospecting, which increases the chance of rocks dropping gems, as well as increasing my chance for finding rare items while digging. Along with these upgrades, I finished crafting my slime wallet, making coins worth even more. Now, here's where I get a bit cheeky. Since building structures gives a fair amount of EXP, and you get back 100% of the materials used to build the structures, I started abusing that to quickly gain a bit of EXP, a strategy I use pretty often through this playthrough. Additionally, with all of the money upgrades I've gotten, I was able to afford the Queen's donation, granting me a fairy aura, which slowly heals me and gives me energy regeneration. Both of these are incredibly slow and it's honestly not really noticeable at all, but I guess it's nice to have. I additionally unlocked the Query, which spawns a ton of resources like iron and gold ore, but I don't have nearly enough resources to actually build it, so that's another goal for later. Using my new sprinkler farm, I unlock masonry, which ends up being completely pointless as it's purely for creating cosmetic decorations. I also unlock craftsmanship, which gives me the next materials needed for further upgrades, royal steel and royal clothing. I'm still a ways away from actually needing to craft any of that though. With all the fiber I've collected, I have more than enough thread for now, so I start planting berries, hoping to increase my fish trap farm as well. Along with this, I finally bothered to make the slime sword, which I don't really need right now, but maybe once more monsters start spawning, it'll actually be useful. I purchased some more cheap land and discovered a bunch of massive beets. These large beets certainly seem friendly, but I won't lie, I was getting a bad vibe from them, so I quickly wiped them all out. I've had too many bad memories revolving around talking vegetables. Thanks to them though, I was able to level up and unlock machinery, granting me the flower press, which I don't really use until later on. I continue to buy even more land, this time unlocking some kind of desert biome with some kind of bizarre structure in the middle. Honestly, I had no clue what to do, so I just gathered the new local resources, dug around for some sand, and went on my way, hoping to figure out the mystery of the structure later. At night, while harvesting my berries, I ran into a mysterious merchant selling some interesting items. Another case where, since I didn't know what they did, I didn't bother to get any. I managed yet another level up, unlocking drilling, which unlocks offshore drilling, another late game building that's pretty irrelevant right now. Thankfully, I do end up getting something useful, the golden gloves, increasing my attack speed by 20%. Now I'll be able to farm the sprinklers 10% faster than I was able to do before. I also got automation, which makes it so crafted items now automatically collect themselves. I also end up purchasing even more land, this time unlocking some kind of graveyard-themed terrain, sporting tombstones and dark flowers. The puzzle on this one is pretty obvious, so I gathered the needed gems and I placed them on their pedestals. Upon completion, I am rewarded with a lantern, which offers better visibility at night. Again, not really needed, but it's nice to have, I guess. Speedrunning levels, I unlock gambling, which gives me slot machines, something that's surprisingly extremely helpful coming up. Also, just a side note if you're wondering why it's taking so long to upgrade my pickaxe, it's because I need bottled beetles, which for a long time I had no clue where to find these beetles, but now that I have access to the desert terrain, they're quite plentiful, so hopefully I can nab that upgrade soon. My hunger for beetles forces me to purchase even more desert land, this time revealing some kind of monolith with a sword and a moon on it. In hindsight, it's pretty obvious what to do here, but I truthfully didn't even bother trying to figure it out. Since the artifact rewards haven't really been that helpful so far, so I didn't really care that much about them. Along with my upgraded medium-sized backpack offering even more inventory slots, I also purchased a slot machine, which pretty much gives you whatever you want for just 100 gold, which at this point isn't really that much. On top of that, if you match all 3 icons, you can get up to 5 gems, or whatever item you're after, making it an easy farming method if you're looking for some quick items. Using the slot machine, I quickly gather all the gems required to build the query. Honestly, I thought it was supposed to be a passive farm for gems, but turns out it literally just summons a ton of rocks on whatever island it's on. So, I have to remove all of these boulders before I can do anything. Some of them appear to be late game rocks as well, taking forever to knock down. With that said though, it's an excellent source of resources, so I pick it up and plan on placing it down somewhere else. I finally managed to upgrade my pickaxe to the gold pickaxe, making it so resources and plants have a chance to drop coins when harvested. Really, I just wanted the additional damage so I could mine things faster. I unlock smelting, which just makes furnaces and forges work 25% faster. Not super noticeable right now, but later on when things take forever to craft, it's much appreciated. I go ahead and move the query onto the empty island where the beets once were, since it was the most open spot, and frequently would use it whenever I was running low on resources. I now begin crafting royal steel, which requires all of the gems on top of normal steel to craft. This would have been an issue if not for the slot machine, which allows me to easily make up for whatever gems are missing. I also go ahead and craft the offshore drill, hoping it was something cool, but it's just used to make bottled oil, a resource that isn't needed until late game. I purchased some more land, this time unlocking an island that already has a chest in the middle, surrounded by some kind of sentries. Their attack is pretty simple, they charge a laser, all I have to do is walk out of range to dodge it. My reward for defeating the sentries is a lunar medallion, which apparently points to the nearest star, and starfalls happen more frequently. I assume this was a feature the developer forgot to add since starfalls literally never happen naturally, so yet another worthless artifact. On the plus side, I finished crafting my golden boots, giving me a bit more speed and dodge chance. With my next level up, I unlock inscription, allowing me to craft things like scrolls, as well as a new item, a book, which increases my EXP gained. This is actually really helpful, and I do craft the first version of it, but I completely forget about it after this point, and it takes a while to start investing into it. So it looks like I'll be enjoying slow XP gains for a while. Now, here's the next wall I face. Great skulls. I'm trying to refrain from Googling things, but I'm struggling pretty hard to find this. It's obvious that it must have something to do with the haunted portion of the map, so I'll begin purchasing as much land on that side as possible. The next island I unlock reveals some kind of jester, who asks a bunch of random questions before granting me a medallion that points towards a secret merchant whenever he's on the map, and the market restocks 25% faster. Not super helpful in my quest for great skulls. I do, however, upgrade my wallet, increasing the value of coins once more. I purchase some more land, this time meeting a goblin who has a strong dislike for skeletons, requesting I bring him 100 bones. Looks like I have some more grinding to do. Continuing to try and make progress, I purchase some more land, this time unlocking a really obnoxious to navigate island with 4 torches. I assume I must have to light these on fire somehow, but have no time to worry about it since we need skulls right now. Yet another purchase of land, this time revealing some kind of massive tower. I enter the tower, revealing 4 cryptic hints as to what items need to be placed on each pedestal. Gentle enough to soothe the skin, strong enough to break stone. Alive without breath, cold as death. Never thirsty, always drinking. I can fall from great heights and live, but submerged in water I die. What force and strength cannot get through, I, with my teeth, can do. Do you know the answers to any of these riddles? Personally, I gave up and decided to come back to this later. Also, just to keep you guys updated, I built the slime bow. I pretty much never used the bow throughout the entire game, but for completion's sake, here it is. Through long thought and pondering, I discovered that if I hit the monolith with the moon and sword on it at night with the sword, it reveals a chest, as well as realizing that I have to shoot an arrow into the eye of the temple to get yet another chest. Sometimes my intelligence, it's frightening. Unlocking these chests reveals an artifact that gives me infinite arrows and a spirit orb, which can be used to either level up or increase one of my stats. I choose to increase damage, mostly so I can harvest things faster. I also gather all of the bones needed for the goblin and am rewarded with a skull key, no longer needing to craft keys to open chests. In my thirst for more land, I accidentally uncovered a non-haunted zone, revealing some kind of snow biome. I defeated the ghost enemy on the island, and upon a sudden realization, I figured out I could use bombs to cause fires as well as melt the chest on this island. So I crafted some bombs, lighting up the pedestals on one of the islands, granting myself more increased damage. I also completed the mining collection in the museum, rewarding me with vampire wings, giving me a 30% chance to heal when killing an enemy. On top of this, I gained the skeleton mask from the frozen area, making it so basic skeletons won't attack me anymore. All around, nothing super helpful. Growing desperate, I try finding the great skulls in the market. When you destroy and replace a market, the inventory changes, so by doing this over and over again, I hope to discover great skulls on sale at some point. Spoiler, this never happens, but I do find a ton of stuff that I can turn into the museum, so it wasn't entirely pointless. I realized that by using the bomb, I can actually increase how fast I mine things, which made clearing out the quarry island significantly easier and a lot more satisfying. Also, I learned it's pronounced quarry rather than query, so I now should sound slightly less stupid when I mention it. I also got enough materials from my market exploit to craft a mining rod, which was pretty disappointing to say the least. On the plus side, I finally found some great skulls on sale by the traveling merchant, a whopping 3 skulls. Not nearly enough, but I guess it's nice to finally see the item. It's at this point I give in and just look up how to find them, and realize I can craft them with a building deep in the magic tree. Unfortunately for me, I haven't really gone too far into it, so it looks like I need to start power leveling. I use a scroll to quickly level up, getting some random ability, something about gaining energy when I kill enemies or something. It's not really that important. One step closer to my great skulls. I go ahead and buy some more land down under, revealing some kind of hellish biome, filled with strong stones and demons, as well as a rude NPC that doesn't really do anything but make fun of you. In the middle, I find a crystal, which offers me 2 boons, one to instantly spawn a bunch of dig spots, or a second one to reduce the cost of resources temporarily. I go for the dig spots, grabbing a ton of gems and rare items, including the dinosaur egg that the druid was crying about. Upon delivering it, he grants me 2 chests filled with gems. I guess it's better than another worthless relic. More land, this time in the desert biome, I unveil another large tower and some kind of cube. The tower puzzle was tedious but straightforward, netting me some gems and another spirit orb. As for the other land I find, I need to strike the stone with lightning in order to activate it. This requires a potion, so I'll complete it later. I continue with my spending spree, purchasing some land with a bunch of flowers, gaining yet another spirit orb, and meeting a princess who wants a bunch of random items, rewarding me with a pink bow, making animals more plentiful. Actually pretty useful since you can never have enough leather. I go ahead and craft the thunder potion, making it so I'm surrounded by a storm of thunder. For activating the stone, I'm granted a bunch of gems. Yeah, it's super exciting stuff. I finally unlock spirituality, netting me 2 spirit orbs, but much more importantly, I can now craft spirit forges, meaning I can finally start crafting great skulls. I also go ahead and complete the puzzle in the haunted area. It really wasn't too complicated, but I'll be honest, I just looked it up since I'm not known for my riddle solving skills. From here on, the vast majority of the rewards are just spirit orbs, which I mostly just use to either level up or gain attack damage, so I'll only mention unique rewards from now on. I finally craft the Spirit Forge, each Great Skull only costing a measly 6 bones. I go ahead and upgrade my sword to the Golden Sword before revealing some kind of musical challenge. After playing this absolute banger, I gain a Holy Relic, damaging nearby skeletons and demons. The damage is quite small, but it does have a cool visual, so it's pretty cool, yeah. Next island, I see a bunch of chests surrounded by spikes. My first attempt ended quite poorly, but during my second one, I honestly have no clue what happened, but all the spikes disappeared after I rolled over one, so easy puzzle, I guess. With my newly crafted Great Skulls, I immediately upgrade my pickaxe, which now does increased damage to bosses. Why I would be using the pickaxe instead of a sword against a boss, I don't know, but it is about time I upgraded my gear. Alongside this, I upgrade my bow, as well as the shovel twice. That's right, like 8 hours in, I finally realized the shovel is actually pretty useful. Next up, it's time to upgrade my accessories, so I begin by upgrading my backpack. The one accessory I'll be struggling with mainly here is the skull wallet, which requires a kapala, which is a rare relic found in the haunted area. Each area has 2 of their own relics, one which has to be dug up and one that's found via fishing, either by fishing rod or fish traps. The higher your shovel is upgraded, the better your odds of finding the relic, hence why I started focusing on upgrading my shovel. Sadly, the odds of discovering the relic are quite low, so I'll be digging around for a while. On another island, I take down 2 giant mounds of bones, revealing giant boss skeletons underneath, which were really easy to take down. Additionally, I've already completed the upgrade for the crystal pickaxe, making it so resources and plants may also drop gems. More gems equals more money. With that said, the next pickaxe looks like it's going to take a while to make. I also go ahead and build 2 banks, hoping to make some money, but turns out they make gold really slowly. But who needs gold from banks when I have my new skull gloves, giving me even more attack speed? With that, I begin my journey of digging, and my life is essentially just the movie Holes. You guys know that movie, right? Does anyone get that reference? With the second to last upgrade done for the shovel, all I need now is the robotic shovel, which requires literally all materials I have no clue how to make. Remember, there's always another mountain. At least I have my skull boots crafted. Along with that, I unlocked factories, which will allow me to craft most of the mid to late game items, including 2 of the items we saw for the robotic shovel. Honestly, the ingredients to build these components aren't even that hard to acquire. The only real thing gating progression here is time, as it still takes a long time for things to finish crafting. One of the more major upgrades I get here is jewelry, which allows me to craft amulets. This is the last accessory I have to discover, each upgrade increasing the amount of resources that are dropped by everything by 25%. A pretty sizable increase, meaning I need to start upgrading my amulets ASAP. So I go on a bit of an upgrade spree, earning the slime amulet, skull sword, gold amulet, slime tome, the Necronomicon, skull amulet, as well as increasing the size of my manufacturing capabilities. Alongside this, thanks to my market purchases, I complete the trapping and cooking portion of the museum. You can think of this section as more of me catching up to all of the upgrades I really should have by now if I didn't get hard stuck on the whole skull thing. I also aggressively milked a cow for like 30 seconds straight, which it's not really important at all, but I thought you guys should see this. I continue to level up, unlocking the Shrine, which is what we saw when we first entered the Hellish Landscape area, and a Sigil Maker, which allows me to craft items which can be used to summon bosses, which we'll get to later on. I finish off the foraging section of the museum, and purchase void portals from the mysterious traveling merchant. I wasn't really sure what they were or what they did, so I bought multiple. Before using it though, I leveled up multiple times, and at this point I'm just kind of selecting skills at random, since none of them are really super important and I'm just trying to get it all finished. Now, after finishing off the farming portion of the museum, it's time to tackle this portal to another dimension. Turns out the void is pretty straightforward. Each level you have a certain amount of time to clear all of the monsters, at which point you progress to the next level until you either die or run out of time. The monsters get progressively stronger, and eventually I found myself fighting against some kind of giant electricity boss. I wasn't really sure what was happening, but he was dashing around all over the place and spawning a ton of monsters, which meant I also had to take them down as well. By some miracle, I actually managed to defeat the boss and all of his minions with literally 0 seconds on the clock, making it all the way to level 10. Remember how I said I was having some trouble with just one of those bosses? Well, now there's 5 of them. Needless to say, I did not progress beyond level 10 on this run. Back on home base, I decided to start using the flower press to craft landfill, allowing me to increase the size of the islands. I did this mostly just so I could have more room to dig around when looking for the relic in the haunted area, but while doing so, I started placing snowy terrain. For some reason this really interested me, so I continued to waste the remaining land pieces I had expanding this island. Additionally, I unlocked the next book upgrade, which is honestly kind of pointless since I've just been spamming spirit orbs to level up. I also go ahead and use one of my star scrolls to spawn a shooting star, gaining some fragments in the process. With this, I can now build and place a shrine anywhere I want. Can you guys see how this is extremely helpful, specifically in relation to the relic I need to find? For whatever reason, that wasn't obvious to me, so I end up pretty much wasting it. Fortunately, this game is pretty lax about how things work, so I simply pick it up, which resets the cooldown, and move it onto the large open field in the haunted section. With that, I finally get the item I've been searching for. Oh, and if you're wondering about the robot following me around, that's a droid. He doesn't really do that much, just occasionally attacks things around me and picks up items. Better than the draft though, since he at least doesn't get in my way when I try to hit things. I go ahead and pick up my fish traps, as well as unlocking some more land in the snowy region. I unlock 2 islands, one containing some kind of statue with a really simple solution, and another containing a new NPC ghost character. He ends up challenging me to a duel, which I naturally accept, and right before our battle, the skull wallet is finally made. There's definitely a strong sense of relief finally having that done. As for the little battle, it really wasn't that difficult, mostly just annoying since they could potentially stun me whenever I get struck. After that, I set up my fish traps and additionally a lighthouse. Since I need the relics from every part of the map, the easiest way to get them is by placing a bunch of fish traps in each location. The lighthouse is used to increase the amount of resources that are dropped within its radius, meaning instead of getting 1 relic when I do eventually get one, it'll drop 2. Definitely helpful when you're looking for rare items. I go ahead and begin filling in all the water spots around the map. On one hand because I was bored and waiting for resources to finish crafting, and on the other because one of the more time-consuming achievements involves covering all of the water tiles on the entire map. Might as well get a head start. This additionally offers me a large area where I can place a ton of markets in my search to complete the museum collections as well as find more droids for sale. I also complete my first power plant, which increases the production speed of the buildings within its radius, which is definitely something I need right now. In addition to the power plant, I do a little redecorating and ensure all of my buildings are within its radius. I managed to get a powerful shrine buff as well, which allows me to sell items at double price. I go ahead and start by selling everything like a madman, and go ahead and purchase 7 islands. The only issue is I purchased them in a bunch of different areas, so I kind of lose track of the islands at this point. On one of the islands, the chests are on fire, so I put them out with water. Another one has a simple puzzle where I have to shut off all of the lights, but activating one activates the surrounding lights. Nothing too complicated. Another island has a new NPC that has a simple request: poop. And a lot of it. Seriously, where am I supposed to find 500 poop? I've gotten maybe 100 throughout the entire game. In addition to this new NPC, I also find the king, who has a thirst for the golden egg. This is a super rare item that's dropped by chickens, so something for me to look out for whenever I see one of the little fellers scuttling about. Finally, after all this time, I've completed the robotic shovel, making it so that the shovel always digs up rare items. No longer will I have to be desperately going around trying to find sand. It's even possible to find resources like plastic in the ground now. This also marks the first tool to be fully maxed out. I guess that means we're officially in the late game now. As you can see, I have quite a lot of fun with the shovel. I've also figured out that I can give animals animal feed in order to gather the poop that I so desperately require. Weirdly, the animal feed also requires poop to craft. Personally, I don't think you should be feeding animals their own feces, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Now that I have everything set up properly, it's time to start upgrading. A lot. With my new, more efficient layout, and thanks to the robotic shovel granting me a ton of rare items, I upgrade the sword, bow, gloves, backpack, wallet, boots, bow again, sword again, amulet, and finally the pickaxe. Next time I go into the void, we're going straight to level 30. Those monsters don't stand a chance. I go ahead and make a cow poop about 300 times before completing the alchemist collection in the museum. I also move my banks to the power station location, since there's also an achievement for making 1 million coins from banks, which I'll tell you right now is going to take a very, very long time. Having collected the relic I needed from the winter area, I go ahead and move my lighthouse and fish traps over to the next zone, as well as unlocking the demon amulet. Now then, we've finally discovered our first dungeon of the game, the Ancient Tome. This area involves solving a series of fairly simple puzzles involving electricity and manipulating these electric blocks. Eventually, I uncover the Thunder Rod, which can be used to zap enemies and power structures. This makes getting through the rest of the dungeon a breeze, and I make it all the way to the end where I have to defeat the Thunder Elemental, who kinda just sits there while I wail on him. With that complete, I'm rewarded with increased HP and get to keep the Thunder Rod. I also end up entering the Skull Maze, which is basically the ancient temple but for the haunted area. This one didn't really contain any puzzles, just a simple maze to navigate. At one point, I encountered some kind of device where I had to sacrifice a heart to gain a boon. I chose to gain a droid and grenades, since more droids sounds fun. I clicked it again to see if I could once again get more droids, but it turns out once you click it, there's no going back, so I had to lose another heart and gained a bunch of scrolls in return. I also come across the Necro Rod here, which allows me to summon skeletons. I don't really have much use for it at this point, but you'll see, this ends up being one of the best rods in the game later on. After completing the maze, I continue to buy more land and find myself in the Crystal Cave. Another mini dungeon, more simple puzzles, culminating in me discovering the Ice Rod and defeating an Ice Wizard. Nothing super difficult here. I also go ahead and solve the Frozen Galaxy puzzle. I think it had some kind of binary solution to it. I ended up just looking it up since I did enough binary in school and I'm all good with that stuff. More land, I discover a giant crystal which I slowly but surely mine, and a magical deer which I immediately and without hesitation strike down, granting me a few gems and another achievement. I think the dev intended for the magic deer and those talking beasts from before to have some kind of moral dilemma for the player, but he's clearly never met a player like me. I won't hesitate. Next, I end up purchasing all of the remaining land thanks to a boon that lowers the price on land purchasing, meaning I now have access to all portions of the map. Needless to say, I still have a fair amount of work to do. I complete the galaxy puzzle for the fire zone, which I'm a bit embarrassed to admit took me a while to complete. But with that complete, we enter into our final dungeon, the Fire Temple. You know the story, solve some basic puzzles, discover the fire rod, defeat the boss, yada yada. I don't really end up using the rods that often, as there wasn't much that my sword and pickaxe couldn't take down. I end up meeting a wizard and quickly get through his tasks before he asks for void steel, which is one of the last building materials in the game. Might still have some time before I'm able to complete this request. I find another sacrifice altar and quickly gain a bunch of potions before finding an engineer and quickly helping him with his request for metal. I also solve an interesting puzzle which requires me to look around the map at these numbers on the ground. I finish off the building portion of the museum before heading back into the void, this time specifically trying to find Kraken eyes, which are apparently only found by fishing in the void. While it does take a while to fish them up, I realized that one of the potions I had gotten doubles the resources gained, so instead of only gaining 2 eyes, I could gain 4 at once. This made things go much faster. I continue into the void, making it all the way to level 15 before being completely overwhelmed by enemies. Since my potions were still active, I ran around for a while destroying all of the natural resources I could find, increasing my supply of resources a bit. I began crafting some of that void steel that the wizard wanted, but as you can see, the materials required are going to be fairly annoying to gather, specifically the void stone. I've spent a good amount of time in the void and only managed to get about 500, and it requires 10 to craft just 1 void steel. Amulet upgrades, as well as stronger equipment so I can go deeper into the void, is definitely required. Unfortunately for me, the void amulet is the next upgrade, which requires void steel. So I should probably focus on crafting that before anything else. I also go ahead and upgrade my bow to the demon bow, and also craft some more factories, hoping to make a lot more materials. Additionally, I begin my quest for the golden egg. This involves using a druid scroll to spawn a bunch of trees, and then using a wizard scroll to turn those trees into animals. No dice the first time, but this is an excellent source of leather which is always needed, and since I was doing this next to a lighthouse, I was gaining even more resources. This was especially helpful when looking for more poop, since I still had a lot of ground to cover with removing all of the water tiles. With the second attempt, I managed to get the egg and handed it over to the king, who was super grateful. I drop even more lighthouses in preparation for bosses I plan to spawn here, since apparently the lighthouse buffs actually stack, so the more the better. Remember how I said that I should use a void steel to craft the amulet first? Well, I ended up turning it into the wizard, who actually gave me a pretty decent upgrade, giving me my final artifact and making it so rods have infinite charge. Now, let's see where we're at. I still have one more tool to craft and one more seal, but for the most part, we're a bit over the halfway point when it comes to upgrades. This is where the real grinding begins. I've also completed 63 of the 103 feats, so about the same place as I am for upgrading my gear. Fortunately, I have enough void steel left to craft the amulet. I also recognize I need to start focusing on getting the water artifacts too, so I plant a massive berry farm so I can craft a few more fish traps. These traps require exponentially more resources to craft as you make them, so while this seems like an excessive amount of berries, trust me, it's not. I also take advantage of all the lighthouses, summoning shooting stars and gaining a ton of star fragments. I continue to gather berries and move my fish farm down to the fire portion of the map, hoping to get enough artifacts from this area sooner rather than later. I should also mention that the reason I need these artifacts is because in order to upgrade the rods, I need to have 10 of each area's artifacts, on top of the artifacts that are occasionally needed to upgrade gear, as well as 1 of each for the museum. So having around 15 of each should be more than enough. I unlocked the upgrades for the backpack and pickaxe, which now make it so that resources explode when mined. This is actually extremely helpful and makes mining the rocks go significantly faster. Finally, I have a sigil crafted and summoned the Toxic Guardian, a large robot with some powerful attacks. He ends up actually being fairly difficult to defeat, forcing me to use potions and actually have some minor strategy when it comes to taking him down. But eventually, I pushed through and managed to defeat him, rewarding me with 4 spirit orbs, as well as a small amount of sludge, which is needed for some late game items. I was really disappointed with the small amount of toxic sludge, especially considering all of the lighthouses around me, but I suppose that's life. I go on to summon the Slime King, as well as upgrading to the Storm Rod during our fight. The Slime King gives me much of the same reward as the robot. I additionally upgrade the sword, which now shoots fireballs, which is pretty sick. Using my new sword, I take down the Skeleton King, as well as unlocking the final skill in the game, meaning I no longer have to worry about levels anymore. I also find out that power plants can stack up to 4 times, so I restructure my whole facility once more, upgrading my gloves along the way. Out of curiosity, I built a nuclear machinery item, which can be used to upgrade structures, making it so they craft double the resources. Super helpful, but they have to be powered by nuclear cells, which means I have to constantly be crafting these cells, which I don't really have the resources for at this point. Nonetheless, it's a pretty cool feature. I go ahead and upgrade my book and bow, 2 useless upgrades but easy to do, and move all of my fishing equipment into the fire area. as well as adding some power plants to hopefully speed up the process. My next upgrades are my wallet and my boots, all in preparation for another dive into the void. I finish off the artifact portion of the museum, meaning I have officially completed all of the collections. This rewards me with the museum seal, marking the final seal in the game, another large portion of the game completed. I craft the void boots before once again tackling the void, hoping that the increased dodge chance would allow me to go even deeper this time. I managed to make it all the way to level 20, gaining plenty of void stones and legendary gems, which are only dropped by bosses such as the ones I've been spawning. Apparently, if you go even deeper, you can start to encounter a ton of these bosses, so at some point I'll have to make it that far if I have any hope of gaining a substantial amount of legendary gems. I continue my quest of filling in the map and discover a ghost that I must have missed the first time I walked by this area. He has some simple quests, and I quickly give him everything that he needs. Now the entire ice portion of the map is completely covered, just 4 more areas to go. With upgraded gloves and wallet, I summoned the Dark Beetle, perhaps one of the more annoying summons that I have to take down. He deals a ton of damage, is extremely tanky, and likes to move around. Fortunately, I invested a fair amount into HP, so eventually I'm able to defeat him. Now, it's time to focus on some of the easier feats that I just never got around to, such as Sharpshooter, requiring me to defeat an enemy with a single arrow shot. I also used the Sacrificial Altar a few times to get the Challenge boon, unlocking another feat and defeating a few monsters I am way overpowered for. I continue to use the Sacrifice Altar, as it turns out to be significantly more efficient to just use Spirit Orbs to gain hearts and then sacrifice them to the altar. On top of the extremely useful Droid boon and Potion boon, there's also a boon that increases your damage, and apparently it increases it a lot more than using Spirit Orbs to increase your damage does, making this a no-brainer. So I farmed bosses, used their orbs to gain hearts, and sacrificed them for droids and attack damage for a while. I finally get all of the artifacts needed for the Fire Rod upgrade, taking down my fish farm. I have also made a ton of progress with filling in the map while I was waiting for this, filling in the entire map but for some reason not able to trigger the achievement. As I was trying to figure this out, I crafted the final tool in the game, the Obliterator, which destroys things, including the ground, in one hit. Apparently this achievement is quite buggy, but after messing around with the Obliterator, I was able to make the achievement pop. Unfortunately, I still hadn't gotten the artifacts for the ice portion of the map, so I had to open the land back up and slap down a fish farm. With that said, we are almost done with all of the artifacts that we need, only having the haunted area after this left, so the end is in sight. I go on to craft the Cosmic Boots and make it all the way to level 32 in the Void, which, trust me, takes quite a while. With the resources gathered from my latest Void dive, I crafted the Cosmic Gloves and Wallet, making it to the second to last upgrade tier. I then complete some more feats I never finished while waiting for materials to finish crafting, like this one where I had to find every secret room in the game, scattered throughout the dungeons, and shoot 100 arrows, as well as using a bottled rainbow. Now then, in preparation for the final upgrade tier, Nuclear, I need a lot of toxic slime that I mentioned before. However, this is the only material that the game is pretty stingy about handing out. So we're gonna have to come up with a plan to farm this material. While you can get a fair amount from void runs, they simply take too long and are way too tedious to be an option for me. Let's turn our attention to the Nuclear Sword. With it, slain enemies may drop toxic sludge or uranium, exactly what we need for our nuclear upgrades. If I can just craft enough nuclear machinery for the Nuclear Sword, we should have a steady supply. So I start setting the stage, crafting a ton of lighthouses and summoning the Toxic Guardian to get some of the small amount of slime that he drops. Along the way, I complete the Void Book and get all of the artifacts needed to upgrade to the Blizzard Rod, moving everything to the haunted area. Finally, the materials finish crafting and I have my Nuclear Sword ready to go. I even managed to achieve 1 million gold, another feat down. Amulet upgrades are also fairly important here, so a Cosmic Amulet will certainly be helpful. Now to farming. I initially spammed a ton of Guardians, but realized this isn't going to cut it, so I began summoning skeletons using the Skeleton Rod, and taking them down with a sword. This still nets me quite a small amount of sludge, but it's better than the Toxic Guardians. I upgrade my gloves next, since with increased attack speed, the rods will also shoot faster, meaning more skeletons. Alongside that, I get specific boons for my shrines, granting me double resources dropped and making it so I can attack twice as fast. This should exponentially increase the amount of sludge I'm gaining from these skeletons. I end up tightening the area so that the skeletons are easier to kill, making a fairly efficient farm. I increase the size of my factory even more, and finally upgrade the last rod, making it so that the skeleton rod now summons twice as many mobs. Alongside this, I gain the final upgrade to the amulet, meaning I really couldn't make this any more efficient even if I tried, having upgraded everything necessary when it comes to farming. And now we grind. It ends up not being too bad, since I have a pretty efficient setup. I upgrade my pickaxe and earn enough money to become a billionaire, which was a lot easier than becoming a millionaire for some reason. I upgrade my bow and wallet and look over my final 6 feats left. Outside of the feats involving upgrading all of my gear, all I have left is making 1 million coins using banks and having 1 trillion coins, as well as owning 100 nuclear structures at once. The latter of which is pretty easy, I just need a bunch of nuclear machinery items. Considering this, I set up a bunch of banks with power stations, hoping to finish that feat off around the same time I finish upgrading everything. With a bit of grinding, I quickly upgrade my boots, pickaxe, and bow, officially having upgraded every tool in the game. The only accessory left being the book, which was 2 quick upgrades itself. With that, every upgrade is done, and the only thing I really have to worry about now is making a ton of money. My initial plan to make some money involved the Slime King. I know it's pretty hard to see anything due to the lighthouses, but I place a bunch of spikes and summon Slime Kings on top of them. Then I go to the shrines and get the merchant boon, doubling the selling price of the items. Sadly, this ends up not being anywhere near enough to become a trillionaire. So I end up using the boons from before and just spawning the skeletons right on top of the spikes, then selling all of the materials dropped by them for massive profits. I also go ahead and complete the nuclear upgrade feat, since it's pretty easy. I just place a ton of furnaces and ballistas and upgrade them to nuclear. About 30 minutes of grinding and I finish off the trillionaire feat, thankfully not being nearly as challenging as I had initially thought. This means all that is left is the bank feat. There really wasn't much to this feat. I sped up the banks as much as I could, so all I did was leave the game running overnight and it completed by morning. And with that, we've completed every single feat in Forager. We've officially 100%ed the game. With this, I go on a celebratory spree, taking down all of the machines and factories, returning the land as it once was, besides the fact that I did dry up the entire ocean, but I don't really feel like fixing that, so. And so we end our story with Forager. Thank you so much for watching all the way through to the very end, and if you enjoyed this video, check out my channel where I have other videos just like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed, and I hope to see everyone at the next upload.